Hi everyone, my name is Nia and welcome to today's live stream, Let's Build Live, Generate Assets for Your Product Catalog. Before we dive in, just a few quick housekeeping notes. You'll find helpful links under the Resources tab. You can answer questions throughout using the polls panel. Feel free to chat with fellow attendees. Just a heads up that the chat is for general discussion only. And if you have questions for our presenter, please drop them in the Ask Presenters panel. To kick things off, we'd love to hear from you. How are you currently using AI in your content workflows? There's a poll that just popped up. And now I'm excited to hand this over to Alex McDonnell, our Director of Product Marketing.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nia, and hello to the Airtable community. Thrilled to share with you some workflows today around image generation and working with field agents around physical product assets and data. So Nia, if we could pop to the next slide as folks fill out that poll, we'll see those results come in shortly here. Here's what we have in store for you today. This is going to be the end of the slides, and then we're going to share the product the rest of the way and dive right into building together. So we'll talk through some of the basic concepts of ways that you might organize product assets and product data in Airtable to then set it up for AI agents to perform some work and some generation within that database structure. We're going to focus on things like generating images, videos, and copy for products. I'm also going to share with you some adjacent workflows around document analysis and cost analysis for products that might be of interest to you as well. So with that, I'll grab the screen share and bring up Airtable right here. So let me jump over to this window with the AI play. So what we're going to start with here is a quick tour of one of our AI plays. AI plays are our more curated set of templates for how to use Airtable with AI to perform some specific workflow to showcase really what's possible with the tools. So you will have a link to this under the handout or resources section under product asset generation if you'd like to follow along with anything that you're seeing today or adapt this to your own workflows. So what you'll do is just hit get the template. And when you do that, you'll be dropped into an experience that looks like this. So let me first share with you the core concept of what we're talking about when we say, let's use Airtable to generate, analyze images for our product catalog at scale. So what you're looking at right here, if you're familiar with Airtable, you might be curious to know that this is actually a custom interface that is designed for onboarding to this app. If you're not familiar with Airtable, just think of this as a really simple welcome mat into this particular application. And feel free, by the way, to jump into the chat. Let us know where you're watching from. And then when you have questions, drop those into the Q&A tab. I want to hear what is of interest to folks today when it comes to generating assets for your product catalog. So the core concept, the core mechanic of what's happening with agents in Airtable that we're going to get into is based on some simple set of input data. So here we just have the names of products and simple images of those products on a white background in kind of a studio setting. We are then able to run what we call field agents. Field agents are these special types of fields within Airtable that actually will populate the data themselves rather than just being kind of an empty cell for you to populate. And those field agents can do things like generate descriptions, generate copy, generate images, even generate entire mock-ups of web pages and videos that we're going to get into soon. And that happens in kind of a sequence from left to right. So based on those inputs, there's a first wave of field agents that run, and then there's field agents that run based on those field agents, and also kind of top to bottom. So for every record in the data set at scale, this all happens in parallel. So let's actually jump into this app now and unpack it, and then we're going to think about how we can adapt this and make this our own. Hey, Lucy from LinkedIn, good to see you. We've got folks on the mainstream here from Portugal, Vancouver. Fantastic. Thank you, everybody, for joining us as we jump into the data layer right here. So again, if you're newer to Airtable, you want to think about the different layers of this Airtable application. The data layer, as you see at the top, the tab across the top right here, this is kind of the back end of our app. This is where information is stored. This is where we go to make structural changes to that app. Automations is where we can go to perform or set up actions that will perform work for us in kind of an if this, then that sort of way. And then interfaces is where we will set up the more visual front end of our app, a place for our team to interact with that data. So we're going to dive into the data layer here and unpack the structure of what's actually happening in this app. So this is a really simple app. We just have one table. We have one table here for our products. Every row is what we call a record in Airtable. And we have very simple inputs. We just have the name of the product and then an attachment field right here. Nothing special about this field that contains what we're calling an on-white image of that product. So really, really simple. That is the input that's provided. Everything then to the right of that is AI generated data. And so let's take a look at this really simple first one right here, image description performed by AI. So inside of this field agent, literally an AI agent inside of this field in your database, you have these custom instructions. And this agent is going to follow these instructions to generate the data for every record using these variables. And so this is a really core concept of working with field agents. We've written these custom instructions out for this agent. And I actually didn't have to write out the entire thing, which I'll show you in a second, but we have these specific instructions provided to the agent. It has access to this one field on this table right here, which is the on-white image. And we have instructed this agent to come up with a description of this product that it sees. Really, really simple. And every time we run an AI action in Airtable, we have a preview of the credits that will consume. Depending on your plan, you will have a different allocation of AI credits that are allocated to you by seat. But for even our lower tier paid plans, those allocations are in the thousands and tens of thousands per seat. And so you can see here this type of action, analyzing an image in the estimate here per record is that's going to cost 6 credits. So as you're getting started with Airtable, I would encourage you to kind of be quite free about throwing some credits at things to try to get experiments running to figure out AI workflows for yourself. Don't be too hesitant because you do have that quite substantial allocation of included credits with every seat. And so I would really encourage folks to do some experimenting on what types of AI workflows might work for them with those credits. So this first one here, image description, I'm going to rerun these just so you can see what they look like in action. So image description field agent is looking at this on-white image, and you can see these first 3 are now generating. So we get this nice generating state from the agent saying analyzing files. And if we look at a few that had already run, you can see the output. So we get this nice paragraph description from this agent. It's done a pretty good job. We can have it do an even better job by giving it examples or more detailed instructions within this prompt. You can always come in here and edit things directly within the prompt. Or you can use AI to help you improve the quality of the prompt. And this is one of my favorite techniques for working with field agents. So rather than edit the actual prompt directly, what I like to do is hit edit with AI, and I will just describe my intent for the changes that I want. And then AI actually will improve its instructions for itself. So let's do a really simple change right here. Output bullet points for the key attributes of each product, including ideal customer type, overall size of product, estimate is fine, and the colors of the product. So I was just dictating there with built-in dictation. And then I can hit this button right here for update. And I am going to see that my changes are then passed into this agent. And I'm going to ask it right here to apply those changes. And then I'm going to see that that is going to get pulled through into the actual image description. Let's try that one more time. I think it actually interpreted as bullet points. So I'm going to say simple change, use bullet points instead for format. Make it a little more readable than a paragraph. There we go. Update agent. And now, let's see. Oh, these things happen. Sometimes you just got to do a little trial and error. Let me just edit the prompt directly in this case, which you always have the option to do. So output the description as bullet points without any additional text or formatting. And I'm going to remove this option to cop out. Then I'll save, I'll confirm, and then let's run a couple of these again to see if our change happens here. Question from Lucy on LinkedIn. How can you ensure hallucinations won't happen when updating the product? So hallucinations are part of working with AI. If you're not familiar with that term, that is when AI can sort of go a little bit off the rails and start to generate things that are inaccurate or not grounded in the workflow that you're asking it to do. I will say the very latest models are less prone to hallucination. So we have support for the latest OpenAI models as well as models from Anthropic. There is also there's no replacement for human review within the process. And so I would always recommend kind of dialing in your prompt with a few records, as I'm doing right here, making sure that it's working well, and then scale it up. The other more advanced technique that we see some users do is they'll actually add a field agent, and I can show you what this would look like here, that reviews the work of another field agent. So this is a reviewer, and if I was noticing that maybe my agent is prone to specific types of issues, I can use one LLM to judge the work of another LLM. So I could say, review the image description output for any blatant errors or content that appears to be made up compared to the on-white image. I'll pass those that intent to the agent, and it's going to then write its own instructions. And then I can perhaps choose a different model. So different models perform better for different tasks. That particular kind of ranking is always changing. But I'm going to give this model here now the opportunity to review the image description. So that would be kind of your more 201, the drawer advanced technique. But essentially the simpler answer is review that work, preview things, get it working with a handful of records, particularly records that you think might be challenging. And then that is probably in a position to scale up. And there's always going to be that human in the loop factor as well. Great question. Let's check in on the mainstream for any questions, nothing else so far. But I'll let those run, and then we can get to some of this more interesting stuff. So that image description, that was really just to give you the core mechanic of how field agents work. So again, we have these custom instructions, and then within the custom instructions, we pass in these other fields from the record. And again, this is always running per record, right? So it's just looking kind of left to right. So in this case, we've passed in the on-white image. You could pass in the name of the product if that was necessary, like so. And a best practice here is to kind of label each of these pills or variables. So I would literally go name, then insert field and name. Because when this is run, this little pill right here, this variable is going to be replaced with the content of that field. So it's going to actually say name contemporary fabric recliner lounge chair. And that's a nice way to make sure that the prompt is really clear and readable for the agent. So let's see here. Let's see how our reviewer did. I'm actually curious. So the image description says that it's a star-shaped swivel base with 5 legs. However, the image shows a base with 4 legs, not 5. Oh, interesting. So it looks like the image description itself was actually right in the first place, but then the reviewer it's a little hard to see, but it was actually incorrect to thinking that it was 5. So anyways, there's a good example of how different LLMs can come to different conclusions, because this one was done with GPT, and then this one was done with Claude. So one of the kind of dynamics of working with AI there. Let's move on to another text-based field here. So let's actually generate some copy for each of these products. We have another field agent here that is returning text. We're going to get into other types of field agent that return other data types, but I want to show you text first, because that's a really good way to just wrap your hands around what's happening. This one has instructions that are a little more specific. So rather than just a general description of the product, now we want some copywriting. And I've instructed that this copy should be 4 to 6 words, a catchy and kind of pithy phrase that aligns with what that product offers. And then look what's happening here. It's not only going to look at that image directly, but it's also going to benefit from the previous work that happened from the image description field agent. So we're going to pass in all that paragraph or those bullet points of image description to the copywriting agent to kind of help it out and identify the key attributes or maybe selling points of this product that might be focused on in the copy. we're also going to give it the image here. And so again, I'll show you what this looks like when these run. You get these field agents that are going to look at the image. Now look at the description as well. So the output of one field agent becomes the input of the next. And we have this copywriting agent that is running at scale across every single record in this database. In my simple example here, just to keep it all kind of understandable, I just have these 6 products, but this is wildly, wildly scalable. So you can go up to hundreds or thousands of products. Of course, you're consuming credits per record. I don't want to skirt around that. That is a factor of working with AI here. But once you've kind of dialed in your workflow and you know that it's performing well for you, you can scale this up to a pretty incredible level. While that copy finishes up, let me also now step over to image generation. So this is where things get really interesting. We're going to use our on-white images to generate lifestyle type images. And so we're going to go, I'll just show you quickly the before and after, from images that look like this to a lifestyle image that looks like this. So we're going to take that same product, but actually now stage it in a lifestyle setting. This is the kind of work typically at a retailer or a company that creates physical products that's done with large creative teams, large photography teams, and quite a involved process of getting those products staged. And that's absolutely necessary to represent the brand accurately and represent that kind of taste and vision and aesthetic of the brand. This can be a way to scale that up and also create reference images before that quite expensive production shoot actually happens. So rather than just sort of like, being in our heads about what we think this asset is going to look like, let's actually generate it. And it's fairly quick and fairly inexpensive to do so that when we do that full on shoot, we actually are all on the same page, all the different people that are involved, as to what that final asset should look like. So the core mechanic here is exactly the same. We have a field agent. Rather than returning text, though, this one is returning images. So we have selected for this field agent right here to return an image. And we have said in its instructions, take this product and place it in a lifestyle setting. And I'm actually going to remove the with a model part. I don't want a person in this particular shot. And I actually contradicted that later on here. And surrounding context in the style of a modern warm home goods or apparel brand. This is where for you and your brand, if you have reference images, if you have brand guidelines, you can pack all of that specific instruction and context into the prompt right here, and you're going to get outputs that look and feel even more believable and specific to you. So I've asked for no people, just include a staging of the product in a lived-in environment. And I'm going to give it, in order to do that task, well, what does it need? It needs the on-white image. It needs the copy to include, which is right here, copy for those lifestyle shots, which was generated in the previous field agent that we were just looking at. And then I also have another little kind of level up for your field agents, an optional field right here. So perhaps I want each image in this data set to come back mostly the same, but per product or per record, I may have some specific instructions that are just applicable to that product that I don't need to go into kind of the overall prompt. So I have an optional field right here for additional instructions. And the way that I set that as optional is just by clicking on this pill that represents this field here and saying make optional. So if a field agent has an input field that is not filled out and that field has not been marked as optional, it won't run. But if it's marked as optional, it will run whether or not that field has content. So for this one right here, let's have a look at this record. I'll click in here. Modern oak extendable dining table. That's our on-white image. We've got our description. We've got our copy. I then also input into this simple text field some instructions specific to just this product staging. So use black metal chairs around the table is kind of the staging that I wanted around this. And then when I get this field agent to run, it's going to look at that content. It's using, now I've rewritten the copy here, so the copy is different. But it's got this these kind of black chairs around the furniture like that. We also have these ones from the template I'm actually noticing are using the previous OpenAI models. OpenAI has come out with some brand new models for image generation that are even more powerful. And the Google models are particularly powerful as well. These are known officially as Gemini 3 Pro and Gemini 2.5 Flash, but also known as Nano Banana, perhaps better known as Nano Banana. So I'm gonna actually rerun those and give those a second to run with Nano Banana. We can compare the outputs and see how far these image generation models have come. Let me have a look at some of the chat here. Joe over on LinkedIn asked, can you ask the tool to remove the image at the beginning of each description? It's redundant to read repetitively when text is truncated, takes up character count. Yeah, you certainly can. So you would come in here, Joe, as part of your prompt. And the best practice is actually to give a full example. So let's actually grab one of these. And I would put this into the prompt right here under example output, so that I actually really am telling the model exactly what I need to see. And so you could remove this sort of preamble right here. And I could just say, rather than the image features a single modern recliner chair, it's just a single modern recliner chair. And then I might also add some instruction to say, no preamble, do not start with the image shows, etc. Just go straight into the description itself. So I can be quite specific with my prompts. If there's anything that's kind of annoying me or is inconsistent about the output, I would just simply tweak that in the prompt and then run again. So anything you see in those outputs, AI is not a mind reader, but if you give it an example of what something great actually looks like, it is really, really good at sticking to that. So there we go. It was run again. Now that's a little bit cheating because that was the actual example that I gave it. Let's run it for this second one using the example about the chair, and we'll see how it does. Great question, Joe. Aiden is asking, I'm not too familiar with Airtable's capabilities. Can we use field agents to write to external databases, or is it more of its own thing? So field agents, Aiden, are more about creating data within Airtable. There are ways, of course, to sync or write data out to other databases, most often through our API. That gets a little more advanced outside of my scope today, but what I want to focus on for you today is Airtable in itself has this relational database core that we're looking at. And rather than needing to sort of have these sort of standard or static fields all the time, field agents actually are this special type of field that populate the data in your database for you and with you. So that is what we are focused on today. It looks like some interest in speaking with sales in there as well from LinkedIn. Nia, if you want to grab that person's contact and we can route them to the appropriate folks on as part of our hand raisers. Any other questions over on the mainstream? Let me zoom in a little bit here. I'll have to strain my vision. Giddy asks, I only have the option to find an image from the web, but not to create a new image. So image generation, I should mention, is generally available for folks on the free and teams plan. It is currently in what we call AI labs for business and enterprise customers. So the template that we're looking at today is subject to that. So if you're on for your teams, you should see image generation. If you are on business or enterprise scale, your workspace admin will need to opt into AI labs, which is part of your workspace settings. So that is probably, Giddy, why you are only seeing find an image from the web rather than generation. It's a little bit different by plan right now. We're hoping to get that out to everybody soon. But what you could do is sign up from a free personal account if you want to do some experimenting with image generation, or if you are the workspace admin, you can turn this on, or if you have access to that individual, you can share what you're hoping to do with the tool, and then they can turn on AI labs in workspace settings for you. Ooh, Mary, very good question. Could we have a table that is the knowledge base for the field agent? Use case, using guidelines based on product type, styling, and brand to audit the proof of the image generated. Mary, you are asking all the right questions. Yes, you absolutely can start to build out knowledge for your field agents as tables. So let me actually show you. It's a good moment here to show how that might work. So you could come over right here and add another table to your base. Let's call this the context table. I'm just going to give it kind of a general name. And maybe we have a few different brands that each have their own guidelines. But you said using guidelines based on product type. So I'll call this table guidelines. by product. And then maybe we have each of these is a product type. And then so I'll choose some simple examples here: chairs, tables, and decor. What I could then do is have guidelines that are represented per product type. So let's imagine, what's the simplest way to show this? I'll just do this as long text, but I want you to know that we also have the ability to do this as a Google Drive link or as a direct attachment. So I'm going to just imagine for you here that I don't have the dummy data available, but we might have these specific guidelines per product type. Okay, so that all lives on its own table. Now, when we go to the product asset generation workflow, we can then insert a field, and we're going to meet another core Airtable concept here, which is linked records. And you're probably already familiar with it given the nature of your question, but for everybody else, this is a reference from one table to another. So I actually want to say for this particular product, I need to make a link over to my guidelines by product, and I'm going to refer to the guidelines about chairs because this is a chair, and then this one is a table. Then I would add a lookup field. So a lookup field goes and grabs data from that referenced table and brings it into the current table. So I'm going to bring in, I think it was just called the notes field. This is, again, is just my sample field here for the actual guidelines themselves. And remember, this could be a full-on attachment. This could be a link to a Google Drive file. But you see that this data has now come over. So the actual chair guidelines themselves, let me just put something, silly here. Chair guidelines, number one, should always have 4 legs. Let's just say that, just to show you that this comes over. So through the lookup field, that data now comes over. Then the final step is giving those guidelines. So these are the guidelines right here on the lookup field to the field agent. So this field agent right here that is generating these lifestyle shots. Again, we were just trying out the Google models there. I would say, just like all these other inputs, product image, copy to include on the image, additional instructions if needed, and then guidelines specific to product. And I would actually pass in those guidelines. So I'm passing in the lookup field, the content that came over from that other field. And then that is actually going to be used in this image generation. So that is how you would set that up. That is a power move. That is when things get really exciting. So you inspired me to kind of level up this app build today. Really, really great question. Other questions. Sarah, how do you actually add reference images of your brand's art direction to the prompt? So exactly the same way as I just showed adding brand guidelines, you could do this for reference images. So if I were to add an image right here, let me just see what I have handy. I have a lot of videos. I don't have a lot of images handy. I'll just put the Airtable logo. So there's our Airtable logo. So on this other table right here that kind of represents all our different brand guidelines, I could say, hey, here's a reference image. And then I could look that up. And I might have different brands or different product lines, or the way we want to shoot one product category is different from another. And I, again, would just add that lookup field right here and grab my reference image. There it is. It's just the Airtable logo for this example. And then exact same technique of passing that into this, this prompt for the field agent that's actually doing the generation. So that is probably the best way to set it up in most cases. The other way that's a little bit more simple and direct would be you could directly put that reference image on the table directly. So if you're kind of using like a different reference image per record, maybe it's not necessary to have this simple table or separate table where you'd be referring to it multiple times. You could literally just come in here, just like your on white image is here as a static attachment field. You could just put that reference image right here, come in, attach that image, and then pass both the, in our case, right, the image to be changed or the image to be transformed with the reference image, and you could create that at scale. Very cool. Great questions. More questions coming in. Caplana, we have a property management business for managing long-term rentals. Property management business, yeah, you could absolutely use an image gen workflow like this for creating different images of your properties staged in different ways. So you could imagine the way that we have product images here. These could be images of your properties, and perhaps you'd want to show them maybe furnished in different ways, appealing to different types of buyers. Not in a way to obviously like mislead what those properties look like, but the obviously staging is a huge part of real estate, and to actually physically stage and photograph spaces can get quite involved, I can imagine. And so you could do something similar here where you have different styles that you're looking to transform those images or those spaces into, and then give your instructions to your field agents right here, and you would get these images that kind of edit the appearance and feeling of that space. Very cool. Okay, awesome questions coming in. Thank you, folks, for bringing these up. So let's continue our tour here from kind of left to right within this app. So far we have provided just these basic input images. We have shown how to provide reference and guidelines and then transform those into other types of images, staged images at scale. So for every single record here in our database, we're running this action. You can then transform that further. So you could say, this is good, and this one is in portrait mode, and maybe I want to use that for ads on, social media or something like that. I can choose the actual aspect ratio here. So maybe I would select vertical, but then maybe I need to recompose that image to act as like a header or a banner on a product collection page. I would come through here, select my model. Again, the very latest models from Google and OpenAI are getting really good at this kind of editing and transformation. And I would say this time it's widescreen. And I would say recompose the provided lifestyle shot to be horizontal or landscape, include all the same stuff. I would save that. And then I would come through and actually let that run once that is ready to go for us here. We'll give it just a second. There we go. Let me clear a couple of these out so you can see them run again. So we're taking, I'm going to remove this one so it has one to work with. We're going to give it this one image right here, and we're going to say recompose this to landscape. So if you ever use like some other products, what might have like a smart fill almost. So I can't just like crop or edit this image directly to make it landscape, because I need to see more of the room. I can't just like crop it in and there's not enough of the environment or the staging around it. I need it to kind of fill out horizontally. That is what we're going to be able to do with this portrait to landscape transformation. This has pretty general applications as well. Like if your role involves resizing images or assets for different ads, different platforms, there's probably a lot of tedium involved in that. And so have a look at this one right here. We just took this metal glass table. That was like 20 seconds of me talking, by the way. And we said, actually, we need this as a header, and we're going to need to see more of the space around here. There we go. We actually just had it transform and imagine essentially what the rest of the space would have looked like around this image. And so we're not stuck doing some kind of awkward photo editing. We can just have AI bump that out into a full landscape from this portrait starting point. So pretty exciting stuff, going from input images to landscape, or from input to lifestyle portrait, from lifestyle portrait to lifestyle landscape, using reference images, using brand guidelines. It's pretty incredible what you can start to create. Let me also then bring this home with one final type of field agent that I want to show you. So this is a particularly powerful one that we call web prototype. So again, same way that we've seen field agents that can generate text, that can generate images, this one can actually generate an entire web page. So if we open one of these up, we can see here that this field agent is placing our images in the context of a page that is like an e-commerce product display type of page. So we can actually imagine, what is this product going to look like in the actual consumer experience. And again, we get this for every single product in the collection. So particularly exciting when you think about in every single record across our database, what's possible with images as well as full web page generations. I'll also show you one more thing before we leave here, which is our video generation field agent. So I'll show you how easy these are to add as well. By the way, we've been unpacking ones that were already built, but if you go to add a new field agent right here, I'll choose video. I mentioned AI Labs earlier for image generation for business and enterprise customers. So video also is in AI Labs for all customers. So your workspace admin, if that's not you, will need to turn this on for you to have access to video. And then this is where I can set up some video transformation on those images. So I'm going to dictate a prompt here. Turn the provided image of a physical product into a video that has a subtle movement of the camera around the space. And that's probably enough to show you the core idea. I get to choose the starting frame. So I'm going to provide the lifestyle shot landscape. I'm actually also going to say, do not include any of the copy that was on the image. So we'll just remove that. And then let's do landscape. Let's do, all that is probably fine. And then we're going to see these run. So again, this chain of field agents that go one after the other from top to bottom just becomes such a powerful concept once you wrap your head around it. And this is really all about using AI as part of a repeated business process that is not just a one-off chat, right? You don't have to kind of restart the chat every single time you want one of these. You would just come in here and drop in a new product, and then you'd watch all these field agents fire left to right. You get your description, you get your copywriting, you link it up with whatever brand guidelines need to be referred to for that particular product. You would see these images generate any other text that you need, this full web prototype. This all happens every single time in parallel, meaning for every record at the same time, and then in sequence with one step after the other. While this video field agent generates, I'll check in on some other questions. Mary, based on condition or status. Yes. So I actually have a little bit of a different view than folks are going to have, because this is just right now being worked on. So a little bit of a sneak peek for folks that made spent the time with us today. Right now, you will see an option to either run that field agent automatically or not. So if all of these fields that are being input to the field agent are populated, the field agent will run. If they are ever changed, that field agent will run again. That's basically the extent of your options today. Or you can have the option to just run it manually, so you have total control. What we're working on is a much richer set of conditions for when that field agent runs. So you can have the same thing when connected fields update is the same as what's currently called run automatically, or a condition, or on a schedule. So this is coming soon. Right now, it's either run automatically or not, but you can have it run. One of my favorite ways to do it actually is run it once, but don't run it again. Like I always want that field agent to give me one run once it has all its inputs, but I don't need it to keep updating automatically if those inputs ever change. So you'll have a much more granular set of control very soon. Great questions, Mary. Kaplana, how expensive can this AI stuff get? Asking because on some vibe coding platforms, I tried to create an app and it used up all my free credits really quickly. There's so many variables, it's hard to give you just one answer there, Kaplana. But I'll say in general, working with text and working with a smaller amount of data is typically in the order of like pennies and single-digit dollars. When it comes to working with images, video, or coding entire web pages, like you were talking about with vibe coding platforms, that is where the credits and token usage typically do start to add up. I will say building in Airtable actually does not consume credits. And so you haven't met Omni yet today, or maybe you have, but I just hadn't introduced Omni to you today. Omni is our always available AI agent within Airtable that can actually help you build out your app. So building out more field agents and more interfaces can also be done through Omni once you have a sense of what you want. I'm focused today on the actual kind of more hands-on building with field agents because I want you to understand these core concepts directly so that you can then use Omni to help accelerate. But that actually does not consume credits. So when it comes to Airtable's equivalent of sort of a vibe coding experience, which is actually building out your app with Omni, we're not consuming credits for that, but it's running these actions inside the actual app with field agents that does. So can't really give you like one number. It really depends on what you're trying to do, but those are sort of the general parameters that might affect costs. Sarah, unsupported file types in attachment field using PNGs like the examples provided. I do know the error you're talking about, but it's tough to diagnose without seeing it. Try changing the model provider. Can you connect to separate OpenAI or Anthropic AI? Question from EB. Not today. So these are all built in. You don't need to provide your own API key. If you want to go the route of using your own, it does get a little bit more advanced. You can do that through scripting, which is Airtable's sort of built-in code execution element. But what we're focused on today is simply choosing the model directly from the pick list on the field agent builder. Tim, AI images sometimes aren't good at the first step. Is it possible to add a validation field that makes the agent go back and redo the image? Yes, absolutely. So what you could do is have some sort of like review process that you would come in and maybe mark a image. Let's imagine here a simple single select as like review, and this is either approved or rerun. Let's call it. And then right now, if you wanted to rerun it, you could just simply click on this button right here, which will rerun that agent. If you're going to rerun it, you want to change some of the inputs though. So you might get a slightly different variation of the output just by rerunning it with the same inputs. But this is where I would come in and say, okay, did I give this field agent all the inputs necessary for it to perform the task at the level that I wanted? And if not, that's where I might have some additional input field here per record, like I showed with the instructions for each lifestyle shot that goes in as an optional field that it can act as that form of iteration. So you see here, these are actually done doing totally different models. This is the Google model. So this is, for me, probably more impressive than the previous one, maybe other than the books on the ground, a little weird, but that would be my recommendation there, Tim, is have a review step where humans can take a look at it. In future, you'll be able to use that conditional field agent rerun to just rerun it automatically. But right now, it's just that one click. And then make sure you're actually giving the field agent feedback the way you would to a human who's doing the work, and better inputs if the output is not where you want it. Stephanie, AI will often make an image and especially video with bizarre mistakes. This is true. How do you suggest running each column to check for errors before you generate your final product page and video and images? And is the product page editable? This is great stuff. So editable on the product page, I'll answer first. So not directly. What you can do, this gets a little bit hacky, but what you can do is insert a formula field that looks at the web prototype field. And that is a nice, simple way to actually get the URL. So here's the URL right here for that actual page. From this URL where it's open in my browser, I can save that, and then I can do whatever I want with the code, but not a direct editing experience right in line today. So that's the last part of your question. How do you suggest running each column to check for errors before you generate your final product page? Yeah, so this is really just comes down to like having that human in the loop process. So for example, with my more, let's call them expensive field agents like video and web prototype, I probably would not trigger them to run automatically. I might say, what we're going to do is review all of the upstream steps first. And then we have a process defined where then once we're happy with all those, we change some field or we click some button. And then that is what generates the prototype or generates the video, to make sure that we have the best possible shot at that output being high quality. Let's take a look at some of these videos, by the way. There we go. So I asked it for really, really subtle video to try to avoid any of those weird errors or choices. That's interesting what it did with the copy. I kind of made it a little harder for this video model because I gave it an image with copy and I told it to use it as the first frame. Starting frame is the lifestyle shot with copy. And then I said, get rid of the copy. So it was a little unfair to the model in this case, but it came up with a good solution, which was to have the copy on the first frame and then fade it out. So credit to VO31 for that. And then I think I gave it 2 images there inadvertently. That's interesting. It actually added the movement of the product. Okay, it took some liberties there in terms of moving the bottom. So we don't know exactly how this product is meant to move, but probably not like that. So you get a sense of what these outputs can look like. We've got a little camera pan here. So again, you have a sense of what can be done. And you can add audio to these videos if you want to, but just for the sake of simple example today, just wanted to show you that kind of simple transformation of adding a little bit of movement to an image. What else do we have? Kaplan, are you planning to add a voice feature like image and video? So no immediate plans at the moment. You can generate audio as part of the video. We don't have a standalone audio field agent in the plans that I can speak to at the moment, but would be curious to understand any use cases you have in mind there. Awesome. Okay. With that, I want to pop over to a little bit of a different style of workflow around physical products. But let me recap here before we leave and move on to that. So core concept of field agents, they are generating the data inside of your database based on inputs from that record. So in our example here, we just dropped in these names of products and these on-white images. We later then set up a separate table that can contain different brand guidelines or reference images per product. We used field agents to come up with image descriptions, to come up with copy for every record here. We looked up the brand guidelines as necessary. And then we also used field agents to generate images, reformat those images, put those images onto mockups of entire web pages, and finally into videos as well. So to wrap us up, I want to just show you one last thing that shows field agents in a little bit of a different light. So I'm actually going to jump over to the interface for this one because you've seen the data layer now. You've seen how these things work. This is actually a workflow that we built out together with an incredible customer called Maggie London. They make women's dresses. They come out with about 3,000 styles per year. And for every single one of those dresses, this is their real life use case, they need to figure out how much it's going to cost before it's too late, before they are committed to making it with the factory and it's over their margin targets and it's actually not going to be a viable product for them. The information, the inputs that they have to figure that out include basically a mannequin mock-up of a dress like this with a kind of generic fabric, a sketch from the designer that might look like that, a swatch of the fabric, and then this massive document that they call a tech pack. So it has basically a recipe for creating this dress. It has all the ingredients, all the different cuts that are going to be required. What is this dress going to cost? And what is it going to actually look like? They don't know historically, right? They would not know for sure what this is really going to look and feel like, how this is going to present to the consumer, and what is it actually going to cost. Using field agents in Airtable, they now get these reports that look like this for every single product that actually visualize it, put it on a model, come up with an estimate, a realistic estimate based on historical data of that cost, and then come up with ways to actually optimize that cost to find 50 cents here, $1.25 there, and generate an image with annotations so that they can make informed decisions about which optimizations they should accept. And so let's look at our field agents in action here. Now that you know the core mechanic, I bet you can understand what's going on. So this first field agent, basic description, 1 paragraph description that is looking at the sketch, the mannequin photo, the fabric swatch, and the tech pack. So this entire document, this entire attachment can be passed into field agents the same way any other type of field is that we've been looking at. Then we have image generation. Let's actually take this design and imagine what it would look like on a model. Let's have a front and back shot And then we're going to use that to perform not only analysis, but also perform some judgment around, is this a product that we believe in, that we believe fits well in our collection, or are there some tweaks we need to make? Let's go even further. Let's place this model in the streets of New York to get her in a lifestyle context. And then further yet, let's actually have her in motion with a video here walking down those streets as well. So imagine the change, the difference of being a product designer and trying to imagine and pitch and sell your idea for your product with this, right? And like as much work goes into those prototypes, but like you're still asking for a lot of imagination on the part of your stakeholders and your buyers versus this to say like, here is this product actually in the wild, in action. What is it going to look and feel like for that consumer? Totally night and day. Then into the nitty gritty of analysis on the actual costs. We then have a field agent that has a detailed prompt of callouts that need to be made on the materials or construction process of that dress that are outsized factors that will determine the ultimate cost of that dress. So it returns this list of bullet points to say, hey, because of all these design and construction considerations, the cost of the dress is likely to be affected. So the size of the zipper, the size of this certain elastic, the size of these seams, things are going to be more laborious or more expensive materials. We then have a really new type of field agent that is going to be generally released next week and has been in AI labs called Deep Match. Deep Match is basically a linked record field that is powered by an AI agent. So it will, rather than you needing to manually link that record, you can actually have AI do that matching for you. And in this case, we're matching within the same table. So we're saying, go and find me 6 similar products to this product in question and actually return data about the real costs and design choices made in those products. Then use all of that information, including the historical data, to give me this detailed breakdown of what the actual costs are likely to be. Compare that to our target. And because we're over target in this case, come up with 5 ways to optimize the cost of this particular product so that we can make some informed decisions to say, what do we need to change about this product to bring it within our cost targets without compromising quality, without compromising the core idea of the design. And we can actually generate, again, another image using AI of these proposed changes annotated directly over the first AI image of the dress actually on the model. And again, we use web prototype here to actually come up with this full executive ready report that breaks all of that down and presents that information. So I wanted to share that with you as another way that once you've kind of wrapped your head around this core mechanic of how field agents work, how to chain them together, how to run them across every record in your data set, these are the kinds of things that become possible. Awesome. So let me use our last few minutes here on more questions for folks watching on LinkedIn or on our Big Market platform, our Airtable webinar platform directly. Please fire away your questions and we'll get to as many of them as we can. So EB, it seems I only have 3 AI models available as an option when creating an image. How do you increase the number of agent options? So more models are coming soon. The models that I showed today will be rolling out soon. Right now, you will likely just see the OpenAI images. So we just have some things to finalize with those Google, the Google model image models to get those out for you. Juan, can you show us the prompt of the image and the PDF? Yeah, so the PDF report is a little bit different. It's not a prompt that's directly generating a PDF. I'll show you 2 things. So there's the prompt that's first analyzing this PDF, which is many of them, but I'll start with the material callout agent. It is structured in exactly the same way. So you see the way that these variables are passed in here is exactly the same for the entire attachment, which in this case is called the tech pack. So that's analyzing the PDF. Then generating the report actually is web prototype. What I did to make it a PDF is I literally just took a screenshot of the whole page. So we don't have a built-in way of generating those PDFs today, but it's actually a lot more compelling, I think, to have it as a web prototype that you can just open and scroll kind of freely. It's a little more dynamic that way. And then is this PDF always the same? That's a really good question. So it is actually generated each time. If you want it to be the exact same, the better path for that is usually going to be creating an interface, and you can create interfaces that are highly specific and custom using Omni. So you would head to Omni on the interface layer, and you would say generate an interface element, and you would ask for exactly what you're looking for, and you can provide some reference and detail there. Awesome. Great questions. Jake, we're focused on product development today. Will there be a presentation on using Airtable AI for field operations, like scheduling, who has permit approvals, etc.? Sounds interesting, Jake. Not something that is in our immediate plans, but would love to hear more about that use case, what you're hoping to use AI for, and then quite possibly it could be something we do content around in the future. Thanks for joining us today. Daniela, how can I use this to set up my services? Because you did the example with product, something tangible, but what about something intangible? Yeah, really good question. So, I guess I would wonder, like, what are you looking to generate for all of those services? Is it quite a direct translation where you're generating like images about each service, maybe infographics or something like that? The same kind of model, the same concept and structure could work for you in that case. But yeah, I would just think about, are there things I have to generate for every service the same way we saw today generating things for every product? It could be text, it could be descriptions, it could be images, it could be video, but it depends a little bit on those specifics. But I think a lot of the same core concepts should apply. Cool, fantastic questions, folks, and appreciate everybody joining. If you are interested in a conversation with an Airtable expert, there should be a message on the screen about booking that time. Nia, if we have the ability to do so, maybe we can bring that back up for folks. Or I know there's the poll of would you like to book a demo with an Airtable expert? So let's give folks that opportunity if they are looking for a little bit more detail or how to apply the concepts that were shown today to their exact workflows. But with that, Nia, I'll pass it back to you to wrap us up. Appreciate everybody joining and for your time today.
Thank you so much, Alex, for the amazing presentation and everyone for being so engaging. As Alex mentioned, if you'd like to book a demo with an Airtable expert, please look in our polls tab and select yes, please, and you will be contacted. And there's also some resources here for you that you can take a picture of, take a screenshot, and or look in the resources section in the tab as well. Also, keep a lookout for an email with a recording and stay tuned for our next one. I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And thank you all again for joining our live stream.